Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, off the Motor City Madmouth, and I have a six-man crew tonight, including myself. And the new kid on the block is Eric Wilson. But before I introduce Eric, okay, I want to let everybody know that this broadcast is simulcast. It's simulcast on a YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. You get to see all of us. If you want to hear the audio version, you got Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeart Radio, and the rest. And of course, you can find it on the website, www.southfloridatribune.com. With that said, Eric Wilson, welcome to the big show, as Keith Olbermann would once say.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this. Thank you so much. Yes, Eric Wilson. I am the host of the Sports Arena. You can find me Mondays and Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, on all my social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and also I do the replays on LinkedIn. Part of the Sideline Sports Network family, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I had the good pleasure of being on with Eric a couple of times last week and really enjoyed the hospitality that him, John Shear, and I think Jake Malik.
Yes.
Three of those guys are really hospitable. Great. So with that said, there's a lot to take on tonight. Our show is going to be is Who is America's Team? And I know that if there's ever a show where everybody's got an opinion, this is definitely it. So let me give a little bit of information about the origin behind what we're doing, and everybody here on our lineup will get an opportunity to provide their opinion. Following the 1978 season, losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers 35-31, Bob Ryan, actually of NFL Films, coined the Dallas Cowboys America's Team following that Super Bowl loss. Now, with that said, okay, that Bob Ryan is no related to my good friend Bob Ryan, okay, of the Boston Globe, who is a very, very good friend of mine. Now, I want to go over some, everybody has a different criteria of what they're going to do. I'm going to talk about Super Bowls and championships, and then I'm going to turn it over to the rest of you guys and provide an opinion later on as we progress. Well, let's talk from a Super Bowl standpoint first. The Pittsburgh Steelers and New England Patriots have 6, the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys have 5, and the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants both have 4. But the Green Bay Packers have a total of 15 NFL championships, 11 NFL titles, and 4 Super Bowls. And then as we break down the numbers a little bit more, okay, the Pittsburgh Steelers have 6 league championships, all of which are Super Bowls. The Dallas Cowboys have 5, all of which are Super Bowls. The 49ers have 5, all of which are Super Bowls. And then, of course, the New England Patriots have 6, all of which are Super Bowls. Now, what's intriguing about the Pittsburgh Steelers is they've won their Super Bowls under 3 different coaches, and they've only had 3 coaches since the 70s. And I'm talking about Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. Noll with 4, Cowher with 1, and Tomlin with 1 as well. So with that said, okay, if I want to pick on the Dallas Cowboys a little bit, which I'm going to do a little bit later, okay, I'll have a good reason to do so. So I'm going to lead it off with Greg Fuchs, okay? In your mind, Greg, who is America's team?
Well, when I first knew what the topic was for tonight, your mind automatically goes to the Dallas Cowboys. So as we all do these days, I started doing some Googling because I figured there had to be more to the story. And there really isn't. I mean, you talked about the origin of Dallas Cowboys, and, just a casual perspective, the Dallas Cowboys, even though they haven't won a Super Bowl recently, have won their fair share, and they are certainly a favorite of network TV, and a lot of the national broadcasts are still Cowboy games. You see the Cowboys play on the road. There's a lot of Cowboy fans in those stands. So they might be as popular as any team nationwide, even though they haven't been good as the Patriots, in recent years. The most interesting thing I saw is someone asked one of the Rooneys, I forgot who was the actual owner at the time, and they said, a lot of people think the Pittsburgh Steelers should be America's team. What do you think about that? And Rooney's response was, and I loved it, I have no interest in being America's team. We're Pittsburgh's team. And to be honest with you, I think that's the way most football fans think. The local fans love their local team, and they hate the other 31. So if I had to say who's the most popular, I still think it's probably Dallas. I think it might run a close second is Green Bay. They've been very competitive over the years. I think the small city charm attracts some attention to them. They've had the superstar quarterbacks. You talked about the Steelers having 3 coaches. You think of the Packers for the last 60 years. You think of 3 quarterbacks who've probably been there for 80% of it: Starr, Rodgers, and Favre. They also have maybe the best uniforms in the league. Once again, a team that is always on national TV. Some people may not like the Packers as much these days because Aaron Rodgers can be a little divisive at times. But, if someone had to vote in the national America's team, I think Cowboys might still rank once. Packers maybe 2. And there were probably a lot of people who jumped on the Patriots bandwagon during all those winning years. But a lot of those people are probably on the Tampa Bay bandwagon now.
So with that
Those are my
said,
thoughts.
I'm going to pin you down to your thoughts are, and I'm putting you on a limb like I'm going to do 5 other people. Okay, Greg, in your mind, who is America's team?
I'm still saying it's Dallas.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Rick Curti, take it away.
Well, it's kind of like a little 2-parter. I would say right now, it'd probably be Tampa Bay because of Tom Brady. Back then, it was the Patriots, of course, because they were winning Super Bowls, Tom Brady. It used to be the Dallas Cowboys, but they've been so irrelevant for the past 20 years, and I can't really say they're America's team because you have to be competitive, and they just have not, And another first-round loss. So to me, I automatically think of the Packers. They won the most championships. People don't forget that. There was a championship game before the Super Bowl. They won the most. The trophy is called the Vince Lombardi Trophy because of Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers. You have 3 legendary quarterbacks with Starr, Favre, and Rodgers. I think, the small city charm. Green Bay, not the biggest metropolis city. I've always kidded you around and said they should be called the Milwaukee Packers. And I think what's so interesting about them is that they have no ownership. The people own them. So, and that's something that, is fantastic for the community. So, I know the Cowboys fans still think they're America's team. When, please, 20 years. And the Packers are still a great team. They're one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. So to me, it's the Green Bay Packers that is America's team.
And to back up your point a little bit, the Cowboys since 1995 have won 4 playoff games in Super Bowl 30. And as you and I like to kibitz around, Rick, okay, the curse of Jimmy Johnson is alive and well because when Barry Switzer was handed one on a silver platter. So, so I'm still waiting for that Christmas card and birthday greeting to be sent from Barry Switzer to Jimmy Johnson. Well, let JR and the folks out in Dallas figure that out. Well, I guess that leaves you, Mr. Wilson. Okay, so the new kid on the block. No, we're not talking about the musical group. We're talking about the new kid on the broadcast.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely hanging tough with this crew tonight. I cannot, in good conscience, sit here and say the Dallas Cowboys are America's team. It just will not come out of my mouth. It won't happen. And I have called them the walking piece of mediocrity because for the last quarter of a century, that's what they have been. To quote Stephen A. Smith, they find a way to get in their own way. And at the end of the day, it all comes back to bite them in the butt. So with that being said, I have to agree with Rick and say, it's the Green Bay Packers. Think of it like this. The very first Super Bowl, who were the victors? The Green Bay Packers. As Greg said, the Lombardi Trophy named after their head coach, Vince Lombardi. Granted, yes, he went to Kansas City afterwards, but still, when Green Bay is in the playoffs, people are excited. And you talk about the Dallas fans that travel. I live in Florida, and I can't tell you how many bars I go to on a Sunday to watch football. The one group of fans that I do see, it's Green Bay Packer fans. They come out in droves to support their team. And yeah, to your point again, you have Bart Starr, you have Brett Favre, and you have Aaron Rodgers. Find me another three quarterback tandem that was successful as those 3 have been throughout the entire career of the Green Bay Packers organization. Right now, yeah, again, off the field stuff aside, I'm not even going to chime or get into that. Focusing on what's done on the field, the Green Bay Packers have been synonymous with winning the NFC North, dominating their division, in Aaron Rodgers' words, owning the Chicago Bears, and continually year in and year out, we automatically place them in the playoffs. The season hasn't even started. And if you ask someone who's winning the NFC North, unless you're a Packers or Lions or a Vikings fan, you're going to say Green Bay. Why? Because of their quarterback play, because of what they've been able to do, and their consistency throughout the entire course of this team's since they've been around, since they've been born. So for me, it's Green Bay. The community piece that you spoke of as well is a piece that I can't ignore. How is it that 31 other teams have not maybe at least tried to adopt this model? The success that this team has had because it's about the people. And they have just proven it year in and year out. Now, yeah, the 2-decade span of New England being America's team because they're red, white, and blue, and it's Tom Brady, and it's Bill Belichick, and it's Josh McDaniels, and Brady takes guys off the street and plugs them into a Bill Belichick system, and you come away with a Super Bowl victory. That's a great story, but that story's gone. You know what story isn't gone? The story that's still being written, and we'll find out this weekend. It's Green Bay. So Green Bay Packers all day are America's team.
Now, let me point out a couple of things too about Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi, what he did to the pre-Super Bowl era was just unreal. And I still find it hard to believe that for at least a year, he finished his career with the Washington Redskins on the back end before he subsequently passed away to cancer. It was hard to imagine Vince Lombardi, to me, in any other environment but the Green Bay Packers. But sometimes a coach will tend to go somewhere else, think he can duplicate it. And I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson and continue through the process. I remember when a coach by the name of Don McCafferty won, Steve would probably remember this real well, with the Baltimore Colts. And then, of course, he ended up moving on to the Detroit Lions and passed away, I think, after one season and didn't see another one. So it was unfortunate because the Lions were attempting to bring in a winning Super Bowl coach. Now, I want to also continue on with your thoughts there, Eric, because here's the thing. Here in Fort Lauderdale, there used to be a bar called Slackers, and I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if they're in business right now, but when my wife and I went into this place, it was unbelievable. The waiting list was in there. You felt like it was Lambeau South. You really did. Well, that said, if you go to Phoenix, Arizona, there's a bar out there called the Stadium Club. And you know what? You talk about a sports bar that turned all Packers. I was out there 2 or 3 years ago. Been there a couple of times. It's all green and gold. And I'm going to tell you something. To me, when you talk about sports bars, especially when they're exclusive to Green Bay West or Green Bay South and the fan base, and in fact, I'll even go a step further. I'm wearing the University of South Florida hat, folks. And from 84 to 86, when I was a USF Bull growing up, obviously, you know where it's at, Eric, you're down here.
Yep.
I remember going to the old Tampa Stadium and the amount of Packers fans that brought in there when the Buccaneers are horrible. You weren't sure if you were in Wisconsin or not, but for sure. So it's safe to say, indeed, they travel pretty well. So, I'm going to continue on with certain things here. And it's pretty hard right now with everybody talking to Packers Kool-Aid, where we're going to be headed next, right, Mel Farr?
Yep. I will, I've listened to what you guys have said in regards to the Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got to understand, America likes winners. And in the 70s, when this moniker became, the Dallas Cowboys were a winning organization, and they're playing at a very, very high level at that time. And it was really them and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, and then you have to understand also, Jerry Jones is a very, very intelligent businessman, and he's hung on to that moniker and he's used it to promote his team. And that's why it is, the most valuable sports franchise there is in the world. So, and that's why, we see him on TV all the time. We know the players very well, because if you listen to any sports radio show, the thing about the Dallas Cowboys, there's a love affair with the Dallas Cowboys. You either love to love them or you love to hate them, one way or the other. There's no in between with the Dallas Cowboys. So you tune in because you despise them and you want to hear all the negative commentary regarding them, or you tune in because you love them and you want to hear all the positive commentary regarding them. That's how Jerry Jones has built that brand, and he's done a remarkable job in doing that. So when you think of America's team, when you think of football, you automatically think about that star. You're thinking of the Cowboys, and that's a credit to him and what he's been able to do as far as marketing that franchise. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're a winning organization. But they're not on TV as much in our area as the Dallas Cowboys are. And we know how the Pittsburgh Steelers travel. They travel and they travel well. So it's without question because Jerry is extremely intelligent. There's no question as to which franchise is America's team. It's the Dallas Cowboys.
Fair enough. I mean, you definitely have a lot of good points there. Let me talk a little bit more about the Dallas Cowboys as well. Okay. I'm going to do some name dropping. Back in the 1960s and 70s, Tex Schramm was the president and general manager of that team. Gil Brandt was the head of player personnel. And we all know about Tom Landry and Roger Staubach. And then, of course, when the Cowboys won their 2 titles, okay, they ended up going ahead and beating the Denver Broncos, and they defeated the Miami Dolphins and lost a tough one to the Baltimore Colts leading up to it. Now, as we take this thing into the 1990s, yes, there's Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson, and as Rick Curti and I and the rest of us like to go ahead and talk about it, the curse of Jimmy Johnson. But then you have Troy Aikman, Emmett Smith, and Michael Irvin. So when you talk about all the different names that are connected to it, to me, that was an incredible brand of football back then. Now, I'm going to tell you what, before I bring on Steve, and we'll continue on a little bit. The greatest football game I have ever seen, and I've covered 4 Super Bowls and an awful lot of football games in my time, goes back to September 19th, 1994 at Texas Stadium, when the Detroit Lions defeated the Dallas Cowboys 20-17 on Monday Night Football. I can remember the day before on Sunday hanging out with Chuck Schmidt, who was one of the Lions executives there. And I actually asked Chuck, do you really think the Lions are going to win this game? And he said, Scott, you're going to be surprised what you see tomorrow, because everybody knows that they were heavy underdogs. Well, little did I realize, okay, that what you had, the stage was set. Barry Sanders against Emmett Smith. Can you only imagine about a heavyweight fight with running backs? You bet. Okay. So Barry Sanders rushes for 194 yards on 40 carries. Okay. And it gets even better. Emmett Smith, 143 yards on 29 carries, 49 yards and 7 receptions. I'll never forget the game going into overtime. And the most unbelievable thing I can tell you at Texas Stadium is that game came down to the final seconds, and I'm standing on the field at Texas Stadium, because at that time the Cowboys were classy and they allowed us to come on the field like 10, 12 minutes before, where Steve and I tell you right now that most teams allow you on 5 minutes, but the Cowboys were classy. And here I am, not only for the last 10 minutes of that game, okay, on the field, but how about another 15 minutes in overtime? And here I am hanging out on national TV with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. I mean, when Mel talks about the brand, okay, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders are part of it. They play on Thanksgiving. They get on TV a lot. And to see an incredible Lions win against, at that time, America's team was unquestionably the greatest game I've ever seen. Now, the only downside to what happened after the game, and this is unfortunately tragic, so I have to bring this up, was I was hanging out with a guy I used to work with named Toby Castone. Toby Castone would die on October 2nd, 1994 due to a car wreck in Dallas. And I was talking to him about the Lions. You know, how Steve out is when you're going ahead and talking to players on the side. You know, you just get to know them and casually before long as something happens. Wow, I just talked to this guy a couple of weeks ago, and all of a sudden he's gone. I mean, I've seen that a lot over the years. So if I'm going to sit here and say that I can take a page out of Brett Favre's book where I'm waffling a little bit, I guess since I'm the host of the show, I can get away with a little bit of waffling. Okay, then I can tell you that the Dallas Cowboys are probably America's team in the 70s and the 1980s. Okay, but then all of a sudden the pendulum shifts a little bit, and then as I let Steve Balestrieri take over in a moment, okay, then here we come with the Green Bay Packers, 1996, winning the Super Bowl. And I think the thing that really turned the fortunes around with the Packers was when they brought in Reggie White, who came from Philadelphia to Green Bay. Comes in and all of a sudden that put Green Bay on the map. Okay. And then if that isn't good enough, you got Brett Favre and Mike Holmgren. And for whatever it's worth, Jerry Glanville gave up on Brett Favre. And we all know what Brett Favre did, set the all-time Ironman record. And to this day, I will tell you, with all the great quarterbacks that have ever played a game, I will always tell you that Brett Favre is number one. I don't care about Lions quarterbacks or any other quarterbacks, but any man that comes to play every single day, regardless of what the injury, will always be number one. Now, would he give fantasy football people probably migraines and you have to go to the drugstore and buy your migraine headache medication? I'll bet Brett Favre did a pretty good job helping the pharmaceutical companies, because of every Packer fan out there that had a migraine knowing that he was throwing the pigskin all over the planet. Okay. My
quarterback coach was Andy Reid.
Well, we get into that too with the dream team of coaches they had. I think Steve Mariucci was on there and John Gruden and so forth. But now we have Brett Favre. And if that wasn't good enough, why don't we just go ahead and add Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy to the mix? And then you have a 2010 Super Bowl championship, and then Titletown becomes Titletown. So when you put and then obviously, how do you go against the Green Bay Packers becoming America's team, right? Because not only are they, as Greg and all you guys have pointed out, you have three main quarterbacks between Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers, okay? And you only have a few major coaches here with Curly Lambeau. And then, of course, we talked about Vince Lombardi and the coaches that followed. Then obviously you have to go ahead and bring out the Green Bay Packers. I know that for a lot of Packers fans that are watching the broadcast right now, I'm sure you're probably sick and tired of Joe Buck. I'm sure you're probably sick and tired of Troy Aikman, but you got one little problem when you get these guys. They're pretty good. Okay, Fox is going to throw their best announcer at, whether you like it or not. So you're going to have to listen to these guys. If you're bad, you don't want Joe and Troy, then be bad. But that isn't going to happen. So, I guess I can tell you right now, for the latter part of the last 20 years or so, because of the television exposure they've gotten, and if you've ever been to Lambeau Field, to me, it's the most unbelievable thing I've ever done. I've been to games both at Lambeau Field and County Stadium, and every time you go to Lambeau Field, it's just unreal. I'll even go a step further for a lot of Packer historians. One of my good friends that was a part of the Packers was Lee Remmel. I'm sure you probably heard of the name, right, Steve? The historian. Lee was one of my closest friends, and anytime I needed something, it was great. When I covered my first Super Bowl 33 when Elway beat the Atlanta Falcons, Lee Remmel gave me a first-class lecture because he saw I was kind of in awe of the whole thing, calmed me down really, really good. And long before Aaron Rodgers came up with the relaxed thing, Lee Remmel made me relax to go along with a couple of other people because I'm covering my first Super Bowl. So I'm going to go out there and throw 5 things out there, and then I want Steve to continue to talk about it. Texas Stadium, Lambeau Field, Vince Lombardi, Tom Landry, Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, because I'm going to tell you right now, Gil Brandt is very active on Twitter. If anybody follows this guy, and I had not the good opportunity to meet Gil one time, I took a picture of him a long, long time ago. My goodness, they're in a better football mind, and that's why the Cowboys won all those a couple of championships, Ben. And I don't think the Cowboys have had any football mind equivalent to it. since he left, other than Jimmy Johnson, who swindled the Minnesota Vikings for the Herschel Walker trade. And I'm getting a reaction from Eric. Okay. And Eric, so why don't you go ahead and piggyback off my reaction? But before you do that, I have to make sure that Eric Wilson knows that when I was on his show last week, do you or do you not know who Devin Singletary is, Eric Wilson?
I do in fact know who Devin Singletary is. Yes.
If he didn't know, I gave him a very good idea on his last show. So in front of a guy who covers the Patriots, Steve Balestrieri definitely knows. We
up in, well, I don't live up there anymore. I live in Florida now, but New England fans are quite aware of who Devin Singletary is.
All right. So with that said, Eric, go ahead and piggyback off of all the information that I've thrown your way. I know for a lot of you folks out there, okay, you've got a lot of opinions. My advice is if you really love this show bad enough, get a pen and paper because there's a lot of notes to take in. All right, Eric, why don't you piggyback off my thought about everything I just threw at everybody's direction?
I was just laughing because of the Herschel Walker and Reggie White. You brought them to the forefront of this conversation. Two great defensive guys who at one time did play for Philadelphia. And, there's nothing really that I can say about these two gentlemen that hasn't already been said. Their greatness speaks for itself. I mean, when Reggie White, when he was in Philadelphia, I was just in awe. Now, understand, I was probably either in my, I'm going to say teenage years, showing my age, of course, but I actually did have the opportunity to go to a game and actually watch him play. And let me tell you something, like you, Scott, I was in awe the entire time. The only difference was I was not on the field and I didn't have to relax because I was a little kid jumping up and down every time I saw him take the field. I'm a defensive guy, from my days in Pop Warner and even into high school. I never wanted to be that offensive guy. I saved that for the divas of the world. I was a guy, I just wanted to hit somebody. You know what I mean? And to watch what that front line would do against some of these offenses, just for me, that was it. I never wanted to be, the guy to make the interception or the guy to run 50, 60 yards. No, stack me in the box and let me get at the quarterback. That was who I was. And granted, my frame didn't really work out, but that was one of my, as a kid, I wanted to be a D lineman. So, but I smile when you say those things because we are still talking about the greatness of players who have transcended this game and who, we will go back and still watch their film and go back and watch those games because it gave us a sense of excitement. It gave us a sense of just, we were in awe, and I think that's the one thing that football nowadays has really moved to. Everybody wants to see the wide receiver go for 60 yards, or we want to see, the Aaron Rodgers of the world, or, sticking with Dallas, the Dak Prescotts of the world, throw the ball up 40 yards to where one of his receivers is going to catch it and make that amazing play. Give me the defense all day long. That is just me. But I will say this to Devin Singletary, who you brought up, I was happy and I was glad to see him get his motor running because I that was a guy that I had kind of forgot about. And thanks to you, Scott, you kind of reminded me who he was and what he was capable of. And then that, sorry, Steve, that didn't unfortunately happen to you on Saturday, but it was just one of those things where I appreciated that because it was knowledge that I had been missing.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to get a little bit of it. But that said, Mr. Balestrieri, what a great lead into SB, Mr. Patriot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Patriots were America's team. I mean, they kind of won their first Super Bowl at a perfect time. I think it was a perfect storm of things that kind of all gelled together. It was right after 9/11. Everybody in the country kind of pulled together for a short time, and then, you have a team, the Patriots. Okay. So, they go to the Super Bowl. They were huge underdogs against, the greatest show on turf. And like Mel said, America loves a winner. So when the Patriots won the Super Bowl, young quarterback with Tom Brady, upstart team with Bill Belichick, and, America got behind that. And as he also mentioned, they love winners, but then they get tired of winners awful quick. So the Patriots became a really popular team to jump on the bandwagon because they were winning, but they were also hated as much as they were liked around the league. And I think you can, go right down the line with all the teams that are winning. You see the same thing. I do believe that the America's team, I mean, that name came about with the Dallas Cowboys. And the bottom line is that phrase was coined. And I think you guys make a valid argument for Green Bay, but you got to remember when Green Bay was winning all those championships in the era before the Super Bowl, the NFL wasn't half as popular as it is today. I mean, they didn't do a great job of marketing the league. Yeah, I mean, that first Super Bowl against the Chiefs, there were still tickets available. I mean, that would never happen today. But, it was right around the end of the Green Bay Super Bowl era that the Cowboys were making their ascendancy. We all remember that Snow Bowl game up in Green Bay where it was so cold and Bart Starr sneaks it in, and that's the Cowboys were starting to make their rise at that point. And I think Dallas, they marketed their team in a way that other teams weren't doing it. They always wore their road whites. And I think that had a lot to do with it because they were recognized. When you thought of Dallas, you always thought of the gold star, white jerseys, and the silver pants. They didn't, starting in the early 70s, they stopped wearing that blue jersey of theirs at home. They strictly went with the road whites, even at home. And I think it made them a lot more recognizable to the casual fan. Diehard football fans, I mean, they all know who their teams are. But, when you're talking with the casual, people that are tuning in, and that was when, the TV started to really rise up, and then somebody coined, America's team. And they were as hated as they were beloved by their own fan base. But, I think that moniker belongs strictly to Dallas. And I hate to say it, but it does. But I still think Pittsburgh fans travel better than anybody. I've been to stadiums all over the place. And, you even like you see the NFL games in Europe, you'll see jerseys from every team in there. But boy, there's a heck of a lot of Steelers fans everywhere. In fact, a funny story, after I retired from the military, I was working private security for some very rich folks. And we went to the pyramids in Egypt. And I had loved the pyramids since I was a kid. That was like a big thing. And I had a white polo shirt because it was like 120 degrees. And I had the old Patriot logo on it, like up in the, top left corner. And I had a buddy of mine take my picture in front of the pyramids because I said, I want a picture with this shirt. And just then, it's like these 3 tour buses come out, and it was a bunch of people from Pennsylvania, and everybody had Steelers gear on, and they were all kind of mugging around trying to get a big group picture. And then one of the guys looked over and, he saw my Patriots shirt. And I said, you guys are late once again. He's like, but we came with more numbers than you did, pal. So, but no, I think the Steelers have, they have a legitimate claim, but they're not a big market team like, Dallas or New York. I think they travel real well, but the one team we kind of left out of the conversation, during a brief, and everything goes in cycles. I mean, Green Bay was the 50s and 60s. Dallas came up in the early, the 70s, and then the Steelers in the late 70s. San Francisco 49ers were a really, really big team for a while there with Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. I mean, you know, we kind of forget about those guys, but they were incredible during, you know, their own period. Then Dallas came back in the 90s, and then, you know, the Patriots had their two-decade run. But I don't think any of those teams ever approached that moniker of America's team like Dallas did. And I kind of hate to say it, but there it is, because I have a lot of family members that live in Dallas, and we're always butting heads about the Cowboys. But yeah, I think you have to give the moniker to Dallas. That's who it originated. And I think a lot of it had to do with the marketing. You know, that casual fan, they saw that white jersey and the silver pants, you know, every week. And there was the networks loved the Cowboys. I don't know, because it was, you know, visual thing, because they were on top at the time. Tom Landry was like the taciturn head coach who kept everything bottled up. And then you have Roger Staubach, who won the Heisman and then went to Vietnam and then came back and quarterbacked the team, you know, and he's the guy that coined the phrase Hail Mary. And, you know, I think you have to give it to Dallas.
Well, that's
So,
fair enough.
so you know why, Steve, they wore their white jerseys at home? Because of the heat.
That was the only reason.
That was the reason why they wore the white jerseys at home, because the white reflects the heat, whereas the dark colors is going to absorb the heat. So that was to give them a competitive advantage. Is the reason why they wear their white jerseys at home.
I didn't know that. I just thought they did it just to make themselves a little more marketable.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I know the Miami Dolphins like to wear their white jerseys at home.
Yeah, Miami does it now too.
Yeah. And let me piggyback off you a little bit, Steve. I remember having the opportunity to cover the Cowboys and the Cardinals years ago at Sun Devil Stadium. And I talked to Jerry Jones. I saw him at Smith. You know, it was pretty neat. And I asked Jerry Jones a question about the Thanksgiving game, because at that time, the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe Lamar Hunt wanted to take the game away from him. And I asked Jerry, you know what? Do you think, you know, I asked him for a few minutes this time. He was very gracious. I mean, really, really nice to me. You know, then again, he's a media guy anyways, but I didn't know that 20 some odd years ago, you know, but at any rate, I'm in the Cowboys locker room and I asked Jerry, I said, do you think the Lions should lose their Thanksgiving game? And he adamantly said, no way. He said, nobody wanted it. They took it. And he also said, we got it. And if anybody tries to take it away from them, I'm going to make sure that they don't go ahead and lose it. So, and, you know, when it comes to Jerry Jones, you have to understand the man's power as well. I mean, think about it. He's the one who helped the Rams get in LA. Okay. And obviously he built his palace on his own.
Have you been there? Have you been there to that new stadium?
No,
It's
I haven't.
incredible.
Stadium
I
was
mean,
unbelievable. I'd like
it
to be there
is
one day.
incredible. I've been to a bunch of stadiums in the NFL, and that one, I mean, it blows you away. The size of it is one thing, and then, you know, I attended a Patriots game there a few years ago, and it was like 94, 95 degrees outside. You walk inside the stadium, it's 72. It's all air conditioned. It's beautiful. And then you see that tremendous scoreboard. I mean, during the game, we were sitting up high and watching straight down. There was a place right underneath us going into the end zone. And I found myself not even paying attention. I was watching the big screen because it just blows you away. It's an incredible stadium. And it's a testament to, you know, the pull he has to be able to build a place like that. I mean,
well, I think the pull that he has also extends into, you know, keeping Dallas in the NFC East, because I heard a story, and I'm sure someone can correct me on this, but I heard that when they established the NFC South, Dallas was supposed to move into that division. It was supposed to be Atlanta, Tampa, New Orleans, and Dallas. And then Carolina was actually supposed to be part of the NFC East. And Jerry was like, that's not happening. There's too much.
I've heard that too, that he wanted to keep the rivalry with the Eagles, the Giants, the traditional powers that be, you know, in the old NFL. And, you know, I had heard that as well. And I think it worked out better. I mean, those rivalries are really intense. And those, I love watching those games. You know, when you see the Eagles and Cowboys, or the Eagles and the Giants and the Cowboys. Right now, the Giants are terrible, but those games are still fun to watch.
Yeah, but I will tell you this, so the Arizona Cardinals didn't want to leave either because they had a good thing going, but they were forced. And you know what, Steve, you make a good point about the 49ers. So I'm going to ask all of you guys this, okay? Especially in the case of the 49ers and the Steelers. I don't really think they want to be America's team, to be honest with you. They would rather defer. That's what I really think. I mean, Pittsburgh doesn't care anyways. They're the Rooneys. They're a blue collar town in a smaller market. The 49ers are a West Coast team. Yeah, they've quietly won 5 Super Bowls with Joe Montana, Steve Young, and we talk about Dwight Clark making the catch that got him into Super Bowl 16.
Against Dallas.
Yeah, right, against
Bill
Dallas.
Walsh.
And it was neat to see those two teams play this Sunday as well, because it kind of brought back a little bit of the old. But you got Jerry Rice in there. You've got Dwight Clark. And the beat goes on with Steve Young and Joe Montana. So, you know, so when you judge America's team, you almost kind of judge it as to how many times they're really on TV to even formulate that opinion. I mean, for a period of time, the New York Giants could look at it because they're in the Big Apple and they have 4 Super Bowls, but unfortunately they haven't won enough over the years. And we're not opening up that can of worms because right now there really isn't one to do it, but they've quietly won 4 Super Bowls. But I think when you put things in perspective, how many times you get on TV, the profile nature of the owner, you know, we all know that Jerry Jones will will his way to power anyways and get whatever he wants. And you know what? And nowadays, when I see a lot of people talk about America's team on any particular network, they're going to refer to the Dallas Cowboys, whether we want to think that the Green Bay Packers are or not, even though they are righteously called Title Town, and nobody really knows about it, except the people that really, you know, that follow the sport for a long period of time. And let's not ignore the 15 championships that they've had throughout the years with the incredible amount of coaches. So, you know, so I think when you put things in perspective, okay, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to give me some closing thoughts on this. And I think we're rolling real well. And maybe you might even have time for a couple predictions this weekend. How's that sound as well? So you know what? We're going to start with Greg Fuchs, okay? Give us a couple closing thoughts on America's team, and then we'll go around the horn to get a couple predictions for this weekend's game. All right, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple teams there, 49ers and Steelers, and their owners may not care about being America's team. You know what owner does care? Jerry Jones. And he no owner in all of professional sports promotes his team like Jerry Jones does. He probably does more interviews than the other 31 owners in the NFL combined. So he does a great job, love him or hate him, of promoting the Cowboys brand. And I believe, you know, Forbes magazine comes out every year, one of the most valuable franchises. And I think the Cowboys, #1 in all the professional sports in the United States.
Okay, Rick?
Well, I'm still going to stand with the Green Bay Packers. You know, before the NFL merger, they won the championships. They were like the first rock star team. You know, they had 3 legendary quarterbacks, you know, and they had this fantastic plan where the people own the team. And I understand about the Cowboys, and yeah, they're super popular. They're, you know, but they have just been so irrelevant for the last 20 years. And to me, I think they're the most popular team. No doubt about the Cowboys are the most popular team. But when I think of like America's team, I think of winning. I think of consistency. I think of legends, Lambeau Field. Nobody wants to play there, especially this time of the year. I mean, the Cowboys are just, I mean, nobody's afraid to go to Dallas and play them there. People don't want to go to Lambeau, especially in the cold, because it's freezing out there. They have that. It's an old stadium, but it's a legendary stadium. And I'm still going to stick with the Packers. I like the Cowboys argument because, yeah, they're super, super popular, most wealthiest team. But I'm still going to stick with Title 10 with the Green Bay Packers.
That's fair enough. Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Not really much more to say, except, you know, when I think of America, I think of, you know, you face challenges, you have peaks, you have valleys, you have trials, you have tribulations. I think that's been Green Bay, their entire organizational franchise. They've had their moments of glory and they've had their moments of how do we get better, you know? So that's why I say that they are truly America's team, because again, the people on that team, and it's about building and staying strong even in times of adversity. So that's why I say Green Bay.
All right, that's fair enough. Okay, Mel.
Rick and Eric, you guys kind of date yourselves, because you talk about there's 3 quarterbacks. Well, you talk about Bart Starr, then you jump to Brett Favre. Okay, so you forget about the years when Phil Bankston was a coach, Dan Devine, Bart Starr, Forrest Gregg, Lindy Infante. See, I remember that because I grew up in Detroit. I know how bad of a football team Green Bay was for a long time with their Don Magic Mikowski at quarterback and all the other cast of characters that they had there. Green Bay is not America's team. I grew up a Cowboys fan. I mean, back when I was in the 70s and the early 80s, those were the only 2 teams that are on TV, really, that you can really remember. It was the Cowboys and the Steelers, and you were either a Cowboy fan or a Steeler fan, period. And I was a Cowboy fan. I like Tony Dorsett. I was a Cowboy fan. Drew Pearson, Robert Newhouse. I was a Cowboys fan. Too Tall Ed Jones, Everson Walls, Charlie Waters. I was a Cowboys fan. I knew all the guys on the Steelers too, but for whatever reason, I didn't like their uniforms. They just said, look all that cool. I like the Cowboys. And again, they came up with that moniker. Nobody else can claim to be America's team. They were given that moniker, America's team. And Jerry, because he is such a great businessman, he profits on it. When they first started coming out with these valuations for these franchises, no NFL team was a very valuable franchise. The valuable franchises were the soccer clubs over in England. Well, now you hear, even when Roger Goodell speaks about the NFL, they don't call them teams. They call them clubs. The reason why they call them clubs is because that's what they call them over there in Europe. If you really pay attention, there was a time when they stopped calling them football teams and started calling them clubs. And then once they did that, Jerry, because he's an egomaniac, he looks at Forbes magazine and he saw where he was on the list and he said, no, this is not good enough. He did everything in his power to increase the value of that franchise to where now it is the most valuable franchise in the world, not just in the United States, in the world. It's the most valuable franchise in the world. That the Dallas Cowboys are known throughout the world because of the marketing that Jerry Jones does, and also along with the cheerleaders. And I mean, they had the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. They had a calendar. I don't remember there being a Green Bay Packers cheerleader calendar.
It's too cold.
I mean, what would they have on? Snowshoes and fur coats or something? I mean, no, nobody wants to play in Green Bay. No, then even the players in Green Bay don't want to play in Green Bay. I can assure you that, especially this time of year. So it's without question the Dallas Cowboys are America's team.
And by the way, Mel, don't forget Drew Pearson, Preston Pearson, and of course, if anybody wants a laughable moment here, let's not forget about Leon Lett and that little gaff he had.
Leon Lett. I mean, Leon Lett was a good player. I mean, he had one bad moment. He's not the only one that's had some gaffes. I mean, who was the Minnesota Vikings player that ran the touchdown the wrong way? Right. So I mean, there's other people have gaffes too.
Well, we can all laugh about Leon Lett. I'll bet you right now that he's probably known for that moment anyways. It probably doesn't care.
No.
He has 2 gaffes, the Super Bowl too, with BB running behind him.
Oh, well.
And then, and of course, the snow game with the Dolphins.
Right. Okay. Well, that's okay. We're bringing on Leon Lett. We're not going to turn this into a long discussion about the Leon Lett at all. All right. Although I have to mention it because I know that they play on Thanksgiving, and when you want to talk about the fish actually sliding in Texas Stadium and Leon Lett doing his thing. Well, Dallas is Dallas, so it is what it is. So, all right, Steve. Okay, you've got a lot of us here going up 9 million different ways. I'll give a few final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, like Mel said, growing up, I was really jealous of the Cowboys franchise because, at that time in the 60s and early 70s, my team, the Patriots, they didn't even have a home. I mean, they played in so many different places. They played at BU, they played at BC.
Yeah.
My first Patriots game I saw in Fenway Park. They had bleachers that they put in front of the Green Monster because the football field in Fenway Park went from like third base into the right field bleachers. It was kind of cockeyed. And I remember those days. And then, they played at Harvard Stadium. I actually saw them play against the Eagles, Eric, in Harvard Stadium in a preseason game. They didn't have a home. I was jealous of Dallas. I mean, they had that, Texas Stadium, the hole in the roof. They had the team, they had the cheerleaders. And, I remember those lean years. And,
Why did they have the hole in the roof, Steve?
I don't know.
So guy could watch his favorite team. That's the reason why they have the hole in the roof.
Wow.
Well, there you go. See,
I'll
that's
tell you
part
what.
of the legend there.
I got news for
But,
you. Well, in the last
growing
several-
up, I mean, we didn't even know if the Patriots were going to stick in New England, and Robert Kraft came along, and things fell into place for them, and now they have a very successful. The Patriots franchise is right up there now as well, But growing up, I mean, I remember Dallas was just they were head and shoulders above everyone else, and. I remember that. I growing up, I was a big Roger Staubach fan, but I was more a fan that, like Eric was saying, of linebackers growing up. Dick Butkus, Ray Nitschke, some of the other guys, Bill Berge. Those were the guys I loved. Nick Buoniconti played for New England at first, and then they let him go to Miami for some god awful reason. But that's a story for another time. But yeah, growing up, I remember those years, and to me, it was the Cowboys. And I hate to say it, but there it is.
All right. Well, you know what? I guess now that
I just hope none of my relatives in Texas are listening to the show right now.
now that I have the final opinion before we go to a couple brief predictions, you can just put me. I'm probably making it easier on everybody, so I try to be as objective about this as possible. We'll put them in the Johnny, what have you done for me lately category, okay? And what have you done for me lately goes to the Green Bay Packers. What have you done early probably goes to the Dallas Cowboys. So you had that period again in the 70s and then the 80s and then in the 90s. And we know that Green Bay, what they've done many, many years ago, pre-Super Bowl, what they've done now. So I'm going to say, what have you done for me at the beginning? We could go to the Dallas Cowboys because it all began with, once again, Bob Ryan, and they built upon that brand. And the Dallas Cowboys certainly going to get the nod nowadays. And I'm going to leave it at that because we have some predictions to get to because time is working to our favor for a couple of minutes. So with that said, I don't want point spreads or anything. We're going to give outright wins. So we're going to go ahead, Greg. We're going to talk about Cincinnati Bengals and Tennessee Titans at Tennessee. Give me a winner, and we're going to whip through these predictions before we wrap it up. All right, Greg. Cincinnati against Tennessee in Tennessee.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, I hope we have some close games this weekend. There were 4 blowouts last weekend, and those games were tough to watch. In terms of Cincinnati versus Tennessee, I really like watching Cincinnati. But Tennessee just has that it factor this year. They're tough, they're physical, they can run. Tannehill does enough. So I'm going with Tennessee, and what should be a relatively close game.
Okay, good enough. All right. We talked about San Francisco 49ers, Green Bay Packers all show. Now you get to predict one of them at Lambeau.
No way I'm going against Aaron Rodgers. The guy has just been remarkable this year.
Okay, Sunday, Los Angeles Rams against Tampa Bay Bucks. And I'll tell you, we had a good time earlier in the week doing the Stafford show. Obviously, Matt got his win. We won't go any further than that. Greg, LA against Tampa Bay in Tampa.
When in doubt, go with the better quarterback, which is Tom Brady. That said, Tristan Wirfs isn't healthy and Leonard Fournette's not healthy. Pile that on top of Godwin and Antonio. I'm going with the Rams.
Good enough. Okay, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs.
This should be a real exciting game. And even though Kansas City's played better the second half of the season, they don't seem to still be hitting on all cylinders. I just love the Josh Allen show. Buffalo's defense, I think, is playing better. I'm going with the Bills.
All right, Rick, pick winners. Okay. Again,
Okay.
we got Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. And as I mentioned to you before, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Tennessee Titans. Go ahead.
This is gonna be a close one. Burrow, I think, is comeback player of the year. I think he's really hit his stride. Great player. I love Tennessee, but not having Henry there. I'm gonna go in Cincinnati in a squeaker.
Well, I believe Henry's going to be available for the game, just so you know.
Okay. Well, I'm still gonna go with Cincinnati. I think they're doing really well. They got their mojo going, and I like Burrow.
Fair enough. Okay. 49ers, Packers. Pick.
Well, I'm going with America's team, of course, the Green Bay Packers. You know, I'm not the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan, but I can't go against them. So I'm going with America's team, the Green Bay Packers.
All right. LA Rams, Tampa Bay Bucks.
Well, I was with the Stafford thing, and but he's going against the greatest quarterback right now, and they're going to be in Tampa, and I think Brady just wants to prove he's the greatest. So I'm gonna go with Tampa in this.
Okay. Finally, Buffalo against Kansas City.
This is going to be a tough one, but Kansas City has just been so up and down. They started out bad, played great, just been really bad, just unpredictable. So I like Buffalo. I like Josh Allen a lot, and their defense is really, really good.
All right, Eric, you're next.
All right. So, I'll just say this. If you got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase along with T. Higgins, I just think they're going to be able to contain, Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill hasn't played all season. I'm sorry. Derrick Henry hasn't played since Halloween. You know what I mean? I've got Cincinnati in this one. With regard to the night game, honestly, listen, I am a huge proponent when it comes to execution. No one does it better than Aaron Rodgers, so I'm going with Green Bay. You talk about Tom Brady being the greatest, that's great. But if the Philadelphia Eagles defense can sack Brady 4 or 5 times in a game, can you imagine what Aaron Donald's going to do to him? I'm taking the Rams in this one. And then the shootout, the matchup, to Greg's point, I hope all these games are more exciting than they were last weekend. The bottom line is this: if you're Josh Allen, if you're Stephon Diggs, if you're the guy we've been talking about all night long, Devin Singletary, this is your moment to step up and prove that you have earned the right to be the AFC East champions and get yourself back to the Super Bowl. So I'm taking the Bills.
All right, Mel, you're next. Bengals, Titans.
I'm gonna go with the Titans in that game. I like the way that Cincinnati is playing, but I like the Titans a little bit better with Derrick Henry coming back.
Okay, 49ers, Packers.
Without question, Aaron Rodgers is playing great football right now. That defense is playing well. I like the Packers in that game.
Rams, Buccaneers.
Man, this is a tough one. I'm torn on this one here. I really am. I'm concerned about the offensive line for Tampa Bay. The injuries that they have in the offensive line, that's really concerning for me. As Eric had mentioned, the number of sacks, the number of times Tom Brady got sacked last week, that's troubling. The havoc that defensive line caused Kyler Murray, to where, looked like Kyler Murray just didn't, he was very unsure of himself, very unsettled in pocket. If they're able to do that to Tom Brady, it's going to be tough sledding for Tampa Bay, but I can't go against the GOAT. So I'm gonna pick Tampa Bay.
Finally, Bills, Chiefs.
I love the way that the Bills came out and played last week. They were phenomenal, and they looked very, very impressive, and they really, really looked like the team to beat. As Greg had said, Kansas City, they're not running on all cylinders. I think they're running on about 6 out of 8 right now, and they're kind of missing a little bit on those. They got a little miss going. So I think this is going to be the end of that run for them. I think I like Buffalo in that game.
Okay, that leaves you, Steve.
Yeah, I loved Mike Vrabel. I think he's a great coach. They're a really, really tough team. I think they eke out a win over the Bengals. I think the Bengals are about a year away from making a whole lot of noise. They're just starting to come into it. They have the weapons, though, that, they can score points in a hurry. So I think that's going to be a really good game. I think Green Bay wins easily over the 49ers. You looked at that game last week against Dallas, and it looked like the 49ers are going to blow them out, and then they tried everything they could possibly do to give that game away at the end. And that's not a way to enter a game up in Lambeau. So I think the Packers win fairly easily in that one.
Rams, Bucks.
Yeah, I'm going with Tampa Bay. I think they find a way to eke out a win at home. Their defense is starting to get healthy. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game. You know, I think they find a way to shut down, well, not shut down, but slow down the Rams offense. And I think they win a really close game. Home team takes it there. And I think the game, Buffalo and Kansas City, if you're a fan of offense, this should be the one to watch. I think, I've been going back and forth on this one all week because Kansas City's at home, and we know that's a tough place to play anytime, especially in the playoffs. But I'm going with Buffalo. You know, they're putting it together at just the right time. They're getting hot at the right time. I think they win a close but a high-scoring game in that one.
All right, let me give you mine really quickly. Okay, I'm going to go with the Titans. I think the Bengals are about a year away, but I love what they're doing in Cincinnati. No question, I'm going to go with the Packers. I think Rodgers is on a mission. If indeed this is his last year in Green Bay, which I still don't think it is, but I believe that the 49ers are going to lose to the Packers. I'm going to go with the Rams. And Odell Beckham Jr. and Matthew Stafford could probably nickname themselves Rodney Dangerfield, hoping that they get some respect with a winning franchise. Okay, so I'm going to go with the Rams. I have a gut feeling that they're on a mission here, and Stafford's under a lot of pressure. He's going to find out winning playoff games is fun. He's won one. Why not win two? Rams. And then the Buffalo Bills and the Chiefs. As much as I would love to see the Packers and the Chiefs play, because we were robbed when Aaron Rodgers didn't take on Patrick Mahomes, Buffalo was peaking at the right time. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills in this contest. So great broadcast tonight, guys. Before we sign off, everybody has an opportunity to let everybody know they get a hold of themselves. And we're going to lead off with you, Greg. Go ahead.
Yeah, I write for South Florida Tribunes. You can find me at www.southfloridatribune.com. And on Twitter, you can find me at gfuchs or Gregory Fuchs.
Rick?
You can contact me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. My email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. I'm also there at Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball, Instagram at Charlotte Bats, and I'm also on LinkedIn under Ricki Curti.
And before we get to you, Eric, okay, there's one fact that entered my mind during Super Bowl I. Steve mentioned that I believe they had like 50 or 60,000 fans over at the LA Coliseum. So they were indeed plenty of good seats available. For that matter, during Super Bowl I believe NBC and CBS carried the game. How far we have come. All right, with that said, Eric Wilson, okay, well, I had to get those facts while they were top of my head. I'd be saying, I wish I would have said that, but I'm not going to say that. I wish I'd let you go ahead and let everybody know how they can go get a hold of you. Eric, great first act with us. Really impressed. Looking forward to having you back down the road. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you again, Eric Wilson, Sports Arena, Monday and Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. You can find me Twitter and Instagram. It's at ECWilson76. I'm also on YouTube, part of the Sideline Sports Network family. Facebook, just Eric Wilson. You can probably find right now. It's an Eagles helmet. That is my profile picture. And then also on LinkedIn, just as Eric Wilson. But thank you, gentlemen. This has been a great honor.
Sure, man. Yeah. All right, go ahead, Mel.
I can be reached at all the social media at Mel Farr Jr. That's Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and the other one, whatever the other one is. Facebook. Yeah, I can be reached. You can find me there. Email me. You can email me at melfarjr@gmail.com. And then you can find out what we have going on in Atlanta and here in Atlanta and Detroit for the kids at melfar.org. Now, I mentioned the last couple of times, last couple of broadcasts, they were going to have that camp for the graduating seniors. That camp was actually canceled because what happened was they scheduled it during a dead period. So we're not able to get Division II and Division III schools out there. So we're going to have to reschedule it for another time. So just to let you guys know that.
And Eric, just so you know, Mel Farr Jr.'s father played for the Detroit Lions, had a pretty good career before injury cut it short, and he was a successful entrepreneur in the car business after his career. So I always find that football players that have successful post-football careers are incredible, and we're incredibly thrilled that Mel Farr Jr. is starting to improve drastically as a broadcaster. So I'm going to tell you, this guy comes up with stuff that's unbelievable that was unheard of about a year or two ago. So with that said, okay, Steve Balestrieri, go ahead.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I write for PatsFans.com. I'm also a national security columnist for 1945.com. You know, if you're into politics and military affairs, I'm on LinkedIn as well as Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, although I hardly ever go on, you know, Instagram anymore, but I'm always on there. I can be reached if you send me a message.
Yeah, I guess the only reason you'd ever have a chance to go on Instagram is to look for Kristen Harper and the Jared Goff.
I say
Oh,
the only time I
gosh.
go on there, I put pictures of my English bulldog on there. So
All right, well, I had to mention that since we had an incredible show Monday night. All right, well, just, you know, my name is Scott Morganroth. I'm the CEO and publisher of the South Florida Tribune. Yes, I am the Motor City Madmouth. And you know what? This broadcast is simulcast, as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast. You can find it on our YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. Please subscribe to it. That way you'll be able to get more and more updates on the shows that we have ahead. If you're looking to listen to the audio version of it, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast. You can also find it on www.southfloridatribune.com. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can do so at Tribune South. It's at Tribune South in Lincoln. You can find me on Scott Morganroth. A special shout out to Candy Ebling, who does a tremendous job making sure all the content gets on the Tribune on a timely basis, as well as the broadcast. Well, guys, I'm telling you, you guys are absolutely, as Dick Vitale would say, awesome, baby, but I don't want to say that loud. Okay, so, but meanwhile, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Sports Exchange. So on behalf of Steve Balestrieri, Greg Fuchs, Ricki Curti, Eric Wilson, Mel Farr Jr., my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us. And one other thing I want to point out, get well to Larry Bluestein, a very good friend of mine. He's dealing with some COVID issues right now. I've known Larry a long time. And please, folks, take this COVID-19 stuff seriously. We're not out of the woods yet. So with that said, good evening, everybody. Until the next time, enjoy your football weekend. Bye-bye.